I'm not really searching for happiness. I'm hoping to find contentment. One of the core elements to living a life where happiness can be present is knowing that we're worthy of love just as we are. I was finding a lot of happiness through escapism, and to some degree I think it's artificial happiness.
Everything is like negotiations, you know. If they like me, then I will be happy. If they accept me, then I will be happy. If they give me their okay, then I will be happy. This is how I am, like you like it or not, fuck it.
The coaching that I do is helping people close the gap between who they're pretending to be and who they truly are.
If you have to pretend to be someone else for a friend, and if they don't understand that you're not available, either emotionally or physically or whatever for them, then he's not a friend.
In a love relationship, when we pretend to be something that we think the other person wants, subconsciously, we can never truly trust the love that we get from the other person. The best way for us to change our core beliefs about ourselves is...
Welcome to Relocate to Happiness podcast. Today with me in the studio is Nick Sabine. We're going to have a conversation about happiness, coaching, relationships, authenticity, questions, and what else, Nick?
I think there's a lot to get into. Let's begin.
Welcome, Nick. Thank you so much. We made it, huh?
Yeah, we finally got there.
Yeah, it seemed like impossible to do it, but then we found some time. And I'm very, very happy to have you here. Before we start, I have a few questions I always ask my guests. Before we start all the questions, I have a few questions about questions. Are you ready?
3 questions, sure.
3 questions, okay. So, question number 1. What was the most meaningful question that you were ever asked?
That takes me straight to one place. It was about 6 years ago in my first ever therapy session in London, and I was dealing with some relationship difficulties at the time and was explaining this to the therapist, and after pouring my heart out for what seemed like an eternity to explain this situation and how complex it was and how torn apart I was and how difficult I found it, he just stopped, took a breath and said, "But what about your relationship to yourself?" And it's no exaggeration to say that question changed the direction of my life.
Very interesting. So my second question, actually, because it's a question that you can, you're asking yourself all the time. So what was one question that you asked yourself and it created a breakthrough? Maybe it's the first one.
That actually brings me more to the present day, actually, because working as a coach as well, I'm working with people who are often stuck or often looking for breakthroughs, and I myself am often stuck and looking for breakthroughs. And the question that if I remember, find to be the most purposeful for breaking through whatever it is, and it might be a small stuckness or it might be something much larger, but the question that I find to be most purposeful to ask myself is, what am I unwilling to fully feel?
Explain. What am I
what am I unwilling?
Okay.
To fully feel.
Okay, tell me more. Help me understand.
Usually, that takes me. If I'm feeling stuck within myself, that question takes me straight to the place that will give me the biggest and best opportunity to unstuck myself. Usually it's because I'm not allowing myself to feel sadness, to feel anger, to feel joy, to feel despair, whatever it may be. That stuckness for me is usually to do with my unwillingness to fully feel something. And when I take myself to that place with that question and I allow myself to fully feel whatever's there, and often it's an uncomfortable feeling that I don't want to fully feel, things tend to open up for me afterwards.
Taking notes. I wish I had a pen, to write down. Okay, last question about
If
questions.
only this was recorded.
Yeah, luckily, exactly. Last question about questions, and then we go straight to the serious question, I say. So one question that you were never asked, but you wanted to.
Tricky question. Probably growing up, something along the lines of, do you think you're worthy of love just as you are?
Wow, super deep.
I think that question would have opened up a whole world of self-understanding, or at least self-inquiry, that didn't come to me until much later in life. And I know we're here to talk about happiness, and one of the core elements to living a life where happiness can be present, I believe, is knowing that we're worthy of love just as we are.
And to accept ourselves the way we are.
Yeah, I actually think self-acceptance is a huge step on the path to allowing ourselves truly happy moments.
So true. You mentioned happiness. So my first question is very easy, but still very complicated. What is happiness for you? And if you have any special formula, I don't know, any secret that you want to share?
I think happiness means different things to different people. And it can even mean different things to the same person at different times in their life.
It's true.
And happiness, for me, I'm not really searching for happiness. I'm hoping to find contentment.
Okay, what's the difference in your opinion?
I can feel content in any situation, in any state. For me, often sadness can be the place where I feel the most contentment, because it's one of the times when I feel most alive, and I can be fully experiencing sadness, but being fully content and almost with a tinge of joy and a tinge of happiness in the sadness, because I'm feeling so alive. I'm feeling fully present. I've given myself fully to that moment, to that feeling, and my mind has just parked itself for a moment, and my body is in the driving seat, and I might be pouring my eyes out with tears, or if I need to experience anger, sometimes I just drive myself to the forest and walk through the forest just screaming to allow the energy of anger to move through me. And I can feel a sense of real euphoria and real happiness after those moments, and they wouldn't necessarily seem like an obvious path to happiness, but for me it allows me to, if I can feel content in those moments, then it can allow the space for happiness to appear.
Beautiful. So I wasn't expecting this answer, but you mentioned going to the forest, and I'm following you on Instagram, and I saw that you were going a lot in the nature. And tell me, was it like always like this, or something like a path that you were taking this year?
No, it's always been like that. I think I just realized later and later in life how important it is for me to spend time in the trees and with the trees. And we had a holiday house growing up in Sydney, in the Blue Mountains. And so we would go there every weekend, and it was right next to a forest. And I would just spend entire weekends just cycling my bike through the forest.
So wait, you're originally from Australia?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No problem. And so it's only later in life that I realized actually how enjoyable that was for me as a child, and how comfortable I felt in those environments. And then, life doing life, I kind of lost my connectedness to nature in the same way. And I'd say over the last 5 or 6 years, I've really rediscovered it, where I'm fundamentally happiest in the trees. And so I spend a lot of my time in nature, even if it's even if it's only, just going for a walk with the dogs for an hour at the end of the day, or maybe going and spending an entire weekend and leaving my phone in the car and just being in the trees for a whole weekend, like that's also something that is really...
You do that?
Yeah, really nurturing
Wow.
and really fulfilling.
I have to share that going out with the dog, taking the dog out like in the afternoon, is the highlight of my day. I take him out and I started loving my neighborhood. Every single time I go and I'm like, okay, I have to find one little thing that I haven't seen before. And every single time I see, it's either that armchair on the balcony of the house, it's like a tree, like the differences of the nature in different seasons. And it's beautiful. And it's like how you say, you're getting yourself like so connected to yourself. And sometimes I used to not to take the phone. Now I'm taking the phone like from security reasons. But anyway, for me, it was just like, it's my time alone. I'm like going through the day. I'm thinking, what happened. And it really helps me like to detense, like to not to be so stressed. I love it. So I completely understand you. But I want to mention something else that you said, and it was super interesting. So life happened and you were not so connected to nature. Is self-awareness like really is playing a lot, like a strong, major role in the way to happiness or contentment, how you call it?
Fundamentally, yes. But I think there's also a lot of people who are experiencing what they believe to be happiness by not walking through the door of self-awareness.
Okay. You know what I'm going to ask you next? Explain, of course. You're not coming out of here without telling me everything. Okay.
So
walk me like...
I think for a lot of people, and I very much include myself in this, I was finding a lot of happiness through escapism. And to some degree, I think it's artificial happiness, whereby the older I get and the deeper that I understand myself, I'm able to really understand exactly the things that bring me joy and prioritize them accordingly. And that joy becomes it's something that makes my heart feel good, rather than things in my younger years that I might have chased, thinking that they made me happy, but actually a lot of the times it was escapism from a pain or a discomfort.
The Band-Aid, I call them.
Yeah. And actually, so perhaps that was making my ego happy or scared parts of me happy. I look at it in terms like, I had a huge social network, especially in my 20s.
We all did, right?
Yeah. And I really saw myself as something of an extrovert. I loved bringing people together. I loved being part of this big group of people, and we would go on trips together and we would do events together. And it was something that in the moment I felt made me extraordinarily happy. But the older I get, the more I realize I'm probably more like a loud introvert, it's all contextual anyway, but like I feel like I'm actually indexing more that way. And I actually think that what I was seeking from those social connections or social situations that I thought made me happy was actually a validation.
Of course, yeah.
I was trying to create a sense of self that was favorable through the perceptions of other people of me. And so, I was organized. Well, he was a great guy. He was a fun guy. He was all of these things that in the moment made me feel happy. This is why I talk about, I don't know if I ever felt content in those moments, and that's why I think it's an important distinction.
Yeah.
But, they made me feel happy, right? But I actually think the later I, just to pause and then start again, the older I get in life, the more I realize that actually I don't need to validate my sense of self through other people's perception of me. I actually need to find what makes me feel good and the people that make me feel good, and then prioritize spending more time with them. And then that nourishes my heart, which essentially makes me feel contented and makes me feel joyful. And so a long answer to the original question, but I think it's really understanding what are the motivations for our behaviors that can help give us an indication as to foundationally how happy those situations are truly making us.
I get it, and I feel you, and I hear you, and I completely agree with you. Been there, done that. I know what you were saying, but I like the term, the artificial happiness. I think I will use it. The AEH maybe. I really like again, I will take notes from the recording. Okay, let's talk enough with the happiness. I'm joking.
Yeah.
Coaching. Okay. I'm a new trainee. Actually, this is how we met. We met like at the workshop, and I have to say that I was not like on, depressed or something, but like I came in the room on a level of energy, and I came out on a different level of energy. And it was not only me, it was also the guy next to me and other people sharing. It was like a beautiful energy there. So my question is, I'm a new trainee now. I'm starting training with you. Walk me through, what do we do?
So firstly, I'm really glad that you enjoyed the workshop. And I'd love to understand on a deeper level what shifted for you in those few hours, but we can do that another time. So often people come to me because they're feeling stuck with something, or there is a goal that they would like to reach, but they're not sure how. Or it may even be that they feel a sense of emptiness within them, despite the fact that by many measures of society, they are successful. And
like ticking the boxes, but inside feeling empty.
Exactly. So I work with lots of people who are, you would look at them from the outside and you would think that they are high performers, they are, that they have the kind of the building blocks of a happy life in place, but fundamentally they don't feel that way inside.
Maybe we should continue our work together now that you're mentioning. I think I need a second workshop.
Does that relate for you?
Yeah, definitely.
How
I feel
so?
I feel a lot of emptiness, although I'm surrounded by people. Connecting to the thing that you said before, and I feel like also a lot of emptiness, although like I'm checking the boxes, and I feel like people from outside like, oh my God, she's like such a high performance. She's doing the show. Everything is great in her life. But then the test of the pillow when you go, before you go back to sleep at night. Like I'm asking myself, am I happy, or was it like a good day? And many times my answer is like negative. So yeah, I know what you're. Anyway, go ahead. I had to.
Can we stay with that for a sec?
Okay, sure. Whatever you want.
What thoughts do you wish that you had falling asleep?
Wow, I nailed it. It was so good. I actually did all my. I respected my schedule, but then I didn't go to the. Like I didn't. I feel sometimes that everything's like a compromise. That I have to make the other people happy, and then I put myself on the last priority. So I'm like super okay with the kids, but then I'm like, oh my God, like why am I not putting boundaries or limits? I'm super okay with my husband, and then I'm like, okay, but like what about a day night, just the two of us? I'm like okay with the work, but then I'm like, okay, maybe I should have done my schedule differently according to my needs, not like his needs, or so everything is like a negotiations, with myself, and I feel that I'm kind of like not prioritizing myself.
And with that very articulated response, you clearly have a lot of cognitive awareness of what's going on.
Yeah, I think too much awareness, yeah.
What's stopping you changing your behavior?
Wow, that's a good question. I'm always saying that I'm on top of the things, like I put the finger, I had I call it a mini down last week, and I'm like, I know what happened, like I was not exercising. The weather was shit, so I couldn't go out with the dog as much. I don't remember, like little small things like self-care, zero, all kind of this small stuff that they lead me to a happier life, and I didn't do them. So I think it's like before I used to say that I'm lacking clarity. Now I think that I'm looking at it, I think I'm lacking organization. Like sometimes, having like a chaotic schedule. I think doesn't actually help me fulfill my potential, because I'm like living on the table much more than I should live on the table. Like the way that I see, if you'd ask me now my utopic day or my ideal, work day, it would be, completely different. And what actually happens like every day, it's like, okay, this thing comes in and things come in, and then it's like a mix of everything.
And what need do you think that fulfills, that busyness?
The business of feeling important, of feeling that you're doing something, of progress, of, it's, I have the answers. I just have to sit down with myself and, I'm like, so, I used to go through life and I wouldn't understand what bothers me. Every single time now, when I'm having like moments that I'm a little bit more down, I'm like, okay, wait a second. I have to stop and I have to understand, like only I know the answers, nobody else. So I'm always like, again, self-awareness, thinking, what bothered me. In the weekend, I was talking to my husband. I was like, oh my God, I miss my old life. And then it's like very easy to say I miss my old life, 10 years ago. But what did old life actually meant? And then I was literally thinking, like I used to do this, I used to do this, I used to do the, can I still do like these small things in smaller probably proportions what I used to do because I used to fly, every other weekend.
Yeah.
And my life used to be very cool. Yeah, I won't get into details. So anyway, I'm really getting and breaking everything down and trying to understand myself as much as I want. So I think I'm getting there, but I would definitely, I need some help.
Can I make a suggestion?
Always.
Your description of that is very thought-based. I'm thinking this, I'm evaluating, I have the awareness. And I wonder what it would look like if you allowed yourself to fully feel the discomfort that you feel in those moments. So whether it's a fear, whether it's overwhelm, whether it's sadness for not having the life that you used to have. It's one thing to think about that and wish for something, but those stories are likely to be attached to an emotion. And back to what I mentioned at the beginning around this, like, what am I unwilling to fully feel? I'd be really fascinated to know what would come if you were to really allow yourself to fully feel those moments. And even if it is fear, or even if it is overwhelm, or even if it is sadness, what would come if you allowed yourself to actually just break down or fully feel those moments? Because that would give you a portal into your body and give you a greater level of personal connectedness that perhaps your body is actually crying out for that. And it would be really interesting to see how that might shift some behaviors in time.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because I met a friend this morning and she said, it's okay. It's like, it's life. It's up and down. Like if you're like feeling down now, it's okay and you should allow yourself to feel this, this is what's like accepted and, embrace it. It's fine. But I think kind of, I was joking in the past that I will get the Oscar for like playing the happy part, the happy girl part.
Yeah.
I think that everybody's used to, and that there are already jokes of like, oh, she's always happy, it's fine. I'm like, no, I'm not always happy. You just see me happy. And it's like, anyway, so I think that I stress myself also when I'm feeling down and I'm like, oh my God, what's happening to me? And I don't allow myself to feel this sadness or this overwhelmed, like from doing so many things, or all these emotions. So I'm like trying to cancel everything instead of accepting. So I hear you.
Would you say that your happiness is very much attached to your identity?
My happiness is attached to my identity. That's a good one. Who I am, it's like if it's, yeah, definitely.
And what would happen in your relationships
if I would show like the real me?
Yeah.
No, I think I'm already, I kind of like, I moved, like I'm on a higher level. I don't have to put the show to, one of the values that when I did my coaching course, we were doing a lot of exercises ourselves before we start with the trainings. And this is the beautiful things. You're trying the tools and then you are talking about it. So one of them was like to take like a leading value and then to break down into actions that you would do, like for the next weeks or next months.
Yeah.
And guess what? What do you think that my leading value was?
Authenticity or happiness?
Almost, yeah. Acceptance.
Acceptance, yeah.
I was told that, this, if they like me, then I will be happy. If they accept me, then I will be happy. If they give me their okay, then I will be happy. So I think I moved from the stage. I'm like much more, I'm trying to be more authentic, and this is how I am, like you like it or not, fuck it.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely it's something that there's a lot of work, it's like, it's not that you wake up in the morning and then you're like, okay, I've changed. I have like the awareness of like, okay, this is how I am now. This is, like I have to accept it and I have to see, and it's not always like how they want it to be. And it's all not all. Anyway, I'm working a lot with to accept myself and to be authentic, and definitely it's something that it's here. Like I feel it.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel it. I spent a significant portion of my life people pleasing. And that was my way of feeling good. If I make other people happy, then that makes me happy and I feel good. And so I became a master. In some ways, it's a manipulator. It's manipulation is a very loaded term, but fundamentally, it's we're contorting ourselves to give ourselves a shape that will seem favourable to other people, and but that comes at a really high cost.
Yeah, the price that you're paying for that,
it's huge and it's tiring.
It's true.
And it's not based in self-acceptance.
Not at all.
At all. And so I don't actually think it's based in true happiness. Because, how can we truly be happy if we're constantly contorting ourselves to show up in different situations in ways that we think will land favorably at the expense of our own authenticity? And ultimately, the first person that we contort ourselves to is ourselves. And so we develop these personas, or I know, speaking for myself, I developed these different personas that could show up very favorably in multiple different situations. But there were many, many shades away from who I really was or how I truly felt in that moment. And I think one of the beautiful things about forming friendships later in life for me has been, from the beginning, me making a different commitment in life to showing up authentically. These friendships have been formed from that place. And so I know that these friendships are really deep and really meaningful, and I feel loved within them for the person that I am, not the person I'm pretending to be. And I actually think coaching is like an oversimplification for the coaching that I do is helping people close the gap between who they're pretending to be and who they truly are.
I'm loving it. I love it. And we have more in common than you think when you were talking. Oh my God, I forgot my thought. You know what I'm saying about the friends and about the friendship I wanted to say? That I always say that I have like friends calling me like, she didn't do this, she didn't do that, like talking about other people. And I said like, listen, if you have to pretend to be someone else for a friend, and if they don't understand that you're not available, either emotionally or physically or whatever for them, then he's not a friend. If you have to lie to a friend that, okay, like I cannot come to your birthday because I'm not in a mood, or I need to be like, no, the birthday is like, it's a very special case. But let's say I cannot come tonight because I don't feel coming out of the house. And if you cannot just explain it like that, and if you can really express like what you feel at that moment, it's not a real friend. And it's very easy to judge the friendships like this.
But so, even the birthday thing you mentioned, where you paused, you stopped yourself.
Yeah, but that's let's say I'm a birthday monster, so like the Bridezilla, so I'm the birth, so that one like it's very difficult to explain. But let's say like just for a special event or like a wedding or something, like an important event of somebody's life, because this is at the end of the day you need to be there for your friend also in the important moments of the life. So like in other moments, if you cannot like say, okay, I cannot do it now, and if you don't feel comfortable enough to express that, then like that friendship doesn't mean anything to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about there is living authentically, and how deep and how meaningful and how real can a relationship truly be if two people aren't showing up authentically within it. And in the context of a love relationship, it can be so damaging if one person is pretending to be a version of themselves to secure the love of another, actually for the person who's doing it as much as the other person, because fundamentally when we, in a love relationship, when we pretend to be something that we think the other person wants, subconsciously we can never truly trust the love that we get from the other person, because we know that it's a version of us rather than all of us. And so when a relationship hits a difficult period where the kind of foundation of the love can hopefully be called upon to help it through the storm, it can sometimes disappear like that, because fundamentally the person who has been pretending to be a version of themselves to secure the love doesn't trust the love that they actually received from that person, because they haven't revealed all of themselves in the relationship. And I think friendships are the same. It's, if we don't reveal, not all of ourselves, but at least, starting that again, in friendships, if we're not, start again. I've lost my train of thought.
It happened to me before. Like, I want to say that. What am I going to say? It's like, what?
Yeah. Okay. And in friendships, I think it's equally important to be able to show up authentically, because it's really a personal commitment. The relationship is merely an opportunity for us to really understand ourselves if we're showing up authentically or not, whether it's a love relationship or whether it's a friendship. And a commitment to authenticity is often based in a personal idea that we're lovable for all of us. And for me, that's been a huge journey, and will probably be a life's journey, to fully accept that I'm lovable for all of me, that the bits where I feel shame or discomfort around, or that I'm not proud of, that those parts are as lovable as the upbeat, funny, kind, generous person that I'm really proud to be. And I love those qualities I have. But actually the bits that exist in the shadowy parts of me that I have not exposed, especially in previous relationships, because I didn't feel proud enough to share them, or I felt scared of, like, am I worthy of love if those parts are also part of me? But actually what it meant that I could never fully trust the love that I got back, because I wasn't revealing all of me. And that revealing of all of me has to first come to myself, and to build a relationship with those parts of me, and learn to love those parts of me. That's ultimately self-acceptance.
Exactly. I wanted to say the same thing. Yeah.
And it's through that cultivation of self-acceptance, to know that all parts of me are just as lovable, that I can then bring that into relationship, and to show those parts of me that it's taken a lot of work to reveal, and to still feel love in having just revealed those things, can be the most reaffirming experience on a bodily level and on a heart level, that I'm truly worthy of love for all of me. And to have relationships in my life that perform that service just naturally as a result of the relationship being the way that they are, it's a beautiful thing.
I have a lot to say. I agree with everything what you said. I just want to add a few things. So first of all, definitely self-acceptance. All the, to accept our ugly parts, I think, and it's a tough work, and it's a continuous work. Definitely on my priority list. I wanted to mention something else. So in relationship, for example, have you ever heard about the term like gridlocks? That every 7 years or something like this, a relationship has this. So this is one thing. So I think we have to know how to, pass these gridlocks. So this is one. And the second one was what I remember, something for me made a huge change, was the difference between impress and being known. like instead of going to impress the other and to, not to show off, but like, to exactly what you said, to create like a persona that, is like always happy and always like cool, and to make the others like laugh or whatever, versus to be known, which is like to really, show yourself with all your parts. I don't know. Does it make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Starting with your question about gridlock, it can also be termed as a 7-year itch. And the common idea is that it's relational. So a relationship has 7 years, and that I actually think it's more personal. Every cell in our body changes every 7 years.
Interesting.
And I actually fundamentally think the period of 7 years is really in recognition of the fact that the two individuals are likely to have changed considerably. And the relationship needs to change as the people do. And what I've experienced in my own life, but also seen in the lives of others, is some relationships can still be the same. And they're enough in terms of how they relate to each other, how they communicate, and so on. But one or both of them might have fundamentally changed really significantly. And so that can create a sense of gridlock, because the breathing, living, co-created organism that is a relationship is no longer fit for purpose in a representation of how the two people have grown within themselves. And Esther Perel says it beautifully when she says that a long-term relationship is just a series of many different relationships, some that last for 2 years, some that last for 5 years, some that last for 7 years. And it's really for the two people to constantly ebb and flow with each other, to both consciously and subconsciously just renegotiate the terms of how they relate to each other, how they support to each other, how they love each other, based on the shifting needs and the shifting self-awareness and the growth of the two people. And so I think the gridlock is a useful kind of catch-all idea, but I think it's really representative of the growth and the transformation that are happening in both people, and can the relationship grow and transform in a way that ensures that it's still fit for purpose for both of them.
Well, okay, that was deep, but yeah, I completely agree. And I think that at the end of the day, this is the purpose of the relationship, to grow together and also to make us grow. So I completely, I hear you. I have another question about that I just realized about coaching. Do you think that coaching actually leads to lasting happiness, or is like a temporary fix?
So I realized I never answered your first question about coaching, about what happens when someone comes.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think I can answer both of these questions at once. So one of the most interesting, consistent threads that runs through essentially every coaching partnership that I have and every client I work with is this idea that the thing that we're seeking is very rarely the thing we actually want. So what happens in our younger years is, through society, through our caregivers, through our parents, through our teachers, we get taught this idea of what happiness is and what success is ultimately. And then we set off on this path to fulfill those things. And we can carry that with us until very, very far into our life, and often get to a point where actually with the list of things that we require to be successful are completed. We're married, we have a house, we have a car, we have a dog, we live where we want to live, we're running the company that we wanted to run, whatever constellation of things that might be. We can often get to middle age and feel this emptiness that we spoke about before, because the things that we were told that if we achieved, we would be happy and we would be content, it hasn't given us that level of personal fulfillment. And so what I like to do whenever any coaching arrangement starts, rather than start with, okay, where do you want to be in 6 months? Where do you want to be in a year? Actually start with, who are you? And spend a couple of months actually just helping someone figure out who they are in that moment. So not who they were 5 years ago or even who they were a year ago.
Who are you now?
Who are you today? What do you find fulfilling? What are your values? What does success look like for you? What does your heart want? What contribution do you want to make to the world? What makes you feel good? What brings you joy? What are you curious about? Let's explore all of these things to support the person in giving themselves a really deep understanding of who they are in this very moment. And then the job that I have as a coach is really just to help give themselves permission to live that life. Because
Beautiful.
so often the life that someone truly wants to lead it's just below the surface. But they've been told for various reasons by society, by their parents, by their friends, whatever, that that's not a life that they can lead.
Okay.
And actually it is, and it should be. And so it's really helping someone really understand that actually this is truly what their heart wants, and then helping them give themselves permission to take the necessary steps to fulfill that. And so often I say to people who come in and they've been really successful in whatever it is, like in film or in marketing or in music or other forms of the creative industries, and they say, yeah, but how is these things transferable? I've only been a film director for 10 years. What else could I possibly do? Mm-hmm. And what I remind them of is they had an idea of what success was that was linked to a passion of theirs at some time, and they applied themselves to that, and they were so successful that they managed to get to a place of notoriety, to earn a great income, to be creatively stimulated in the field, because that's what they had an idea of success was for them. Mm-hmm. That same level of application, that same dedication can be applied in a slightly different direction or a completely different direction, but it's just a case of actually redefining what success is for that person. So for the person you are today, what does a meaningful life look like? And actually helping someone understand what that is, and then helping them redefine success from that place, then all of that energy and all of that dedication and all of that commitment can be applied in another direction. And chances are they'll be just as successful, if not more, because it's aligned with their heart.
Let me ask you something. How many of the people that you said, like when you were coming and you were starting the coaching session, how many do they actually know how to answer at the beginning before you do the exercises? How many do they know to answer, who am I? It's a process, I guess.
It's a process, yeah. We all have a version, or many versions of answers to that question, but it's a process, and it's a process of self-inquiry. And my role is to guide them on that process, mm-hmm. And to help them have a deep understanding of who they are and what's important to them, mm-hmm. and then to make the necessary changes in their life to live in alignment with who they are and what they want.
So if I go back to the question, so it's not a temporary fix, it's a long process. It's a long process.
It is. I mean, it is a long process. So I can only talk about my process, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I work with people for a minimum of 6 months. So what I'm trying to do in my support of others is to help them empower themselves, mm-hmm. to live the life that they truly want, mm-hmm. And the life that their heart truly wants. And once you've been on that journey to really understanding what's important to you and what changes you need to make in your life to live in accordance with your values and to live in accordance with what integrity is for you, mm-hmm. And to start doing life very, very differently in a way that is really anchored in joy or curiosity or the things that they truly want, it's very difficult to go back to how it was.
Yeah, especially after a longer time, not like a very short, like one session and then, okay, the change has come.
Exactly, because I guess another way of looking at it is someone's life situation. So they might be struggling in a relationship, they might be arguing with a co-founder, their business might be failing, any number of reasons they may feel like, I really need support in this moment, I'm going to reach out for a coach. All of these things are just content. So the arguments with the partner, the fights with the co-founder, the failing business, these things are just content. And yes, we can explore those things and look at what could be done over the next weeks and months to help in any of those situations. But what's fundamentally most interesting for long-term, sustainable, meaningful change is the context. So really understanding how that person is relating to that situation. Mm-hmm. And once we help in that exploration and that understanding and shift the way that someone can relate to discomfort or relate to a difficult situation or learn how to take responsibility for the life that they're creating, so life's happening for them rather than to them, mm-hmm. those skills are purposeful for the rest of one's life. Mm-hmm. And so that's the level that I find is most beneficial mm-hmm. in supporting people's transformation. Because if you can shift how you relate to difficult situations and challenges mm-hmm. in the now, then you maintain that knowledge into the future. And so mm-hmm. whereas if you're just dealing with like just a relationship issue, for example, yes, you can work on that and so on. But the most interesting thing from my perspective in a transformational personal process is how is that person relating ultimately to themselves mm-hmm. in that situation, and then as a result to the other, and understanding that and looking at how I can support them in making meaningful change on that level, mm-hmm. then sets people up for the future.
Wow. I'm thinking of like signing in for your coaching 6 months program.
Let's do it.
Yeah. We will talk after, but you can. We have it recorded now. I just.
Yeah, you've committed.
Yes, I've committed. But I want to ask you something else. When you mention all this, like I'm being like a lot of things that I want to ask you, and I'm trying to put together like all my thoughts. But I wanted to ask you about the dependency. Is there a risk of being dependent, like of a trainee being dependent on you, on external like support? And I can share with you my personal experience. I was with a parenting coach like 4 years ago, I think, something like that. And I was like more than 1 year and a half I was with her, training at the beginning, like every week, then every other week, and then every month. And anyway, but like I just needed, sometimes like, the conversation were going backwards, repeating. And then like, I don't remember, like I just, okay, now like we're going to finish. And she was also okay with it. Super cute, smart girl, Lital, which I thank her a lot of, about talking about relationships, my relationship with the kids. Anyway, the thing is that I remember that I was more than a year with her, and then we said goodbyes, and it was on Zoom. Man, I cried my soul out. I haven't cried the whole year and a half, but then I just couldn't say goodbye. I felt like she was my anchor, and I felt that I was like super dependent on her in one point. And then I was like, okay, can I do this by myself without her help? And I did it finally. I'm still seeing someone now, but I know like every other month and for specific things. But my question is, how dependent can a trainee become to the coach? And if it's dangerous not for the transformation, but for the process?
I think it's a great question. It really comes down to the coaching partnership. I really see my role as creating the space for personal transformation, mm-hmm. or fundamentally actually co-creating the space with the other person for personal transformation. And the goal for me is at the end of that 6 month, for that person to have the tools and the techniques and the self-understanding to be able to navigate their own way mm-hmm. through life and beyond the challenges that may have brought them to the partnership in the first place. That's not to say that there aren't plenty of people who will do a second phase or a third phase, because we're all growing constantly. I work with a coach and have done multiple phases with her, and it's been really powerful and beneficial for me. But to answer your question specifically, a lot of it comes down to the core beliefs that we have about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And if in the time of the coaching partnership, that person's core belief remains that they can't do it on their own, then, yeah, you do create a dependency situation. But ideally and this is one of the reasons why I work with a container of a significant length of time, because the best way for us to change our core beliefs about ourselves is experiential. So in your example about, you working with a parenting coach, let's say I was your parenting coach, no matter how many times I said to you, you're a great parent, it's not really going to do that much to shift your core belief about yourself. But if we work on a bunch of behaviors or exercises that you can then take into your relationship with your children and then actually act differently and actually receive the information from them through how you relate to them, that, actually, maybe I'm not a bad parent. Maybe I'm good at this. And actually then you do that for a number of months, and then hopefully at the end of the 6 months, your core belief about yourself is, I'm a good parent and I've got this. Whereas and again, it comes down to that difference between content and context. So the content in your situation may be, my child is he or she's always late for school, and I can't get them up in the morning. We always have an argument in the morning.
How do you know that?
and that's the content, right? And actually, yes, we can discuss certain solutions to that situation, but what's most interesting is the context, and how are you showing up in that situation? How are you relating to yourself? How are you relating to them? And what core beliefs is this bringing up within you? And if we can work together to shift those core beliefs, so you get to the end of the coaching partnership feeling like you're completely equipped to actually navigate any situation that arrives in relationship to your kids, then I don't think you have the same level of dependency, because you're fully equipped within you, and you know that you as an adult and as a mother have everything that you need to navigate the situation effectively.
I won't continue, but because we will change it into a coaching session for me for parenting there. Anyway, she gave me a lot of tools, and I did feel like in most of the situation capable, and I felt like I was good enough to to actually show up how I wanted to. But then I still felt that I'm failing sometimes. But I think that, how you said, it takes time to change our beliefs. And I think that deep inside me, I was just thinking, I'm not a good enough mom. As I said, it's a different subject. I want to ask you something else also.
Can I just say something on that?
Of course.
It's having those feelings of I'm not a good enough mum, that they're completely human. I often feel like I'm not a good enough coach. I'm not helping this person as much as I could be. Am I asking the right questions? These are just natural parts of the human condition, that even if there is a core belief that you're a great parent, it's still likely that you're going to have days when you question that fundamental core belief. And it's just really how you relate to those moments in time. Do you let them fully consume you, whereby you then respond differently to your kids because you have this core belief that you're a bad parent, and then you don't feel confident in the decisions that you're taking and the motivations for those decisions? Or can you arrive at those moments and just realize that they're just a story that you've created about yourself, and perhaps don't make any big decisions in that moment, wait for that moment to pass or what have you. But I think it's important for all of us to remember that, we have good days and bad days, and good moments and bad moments, and moments where we really question all parts of ourselves. And they're often some of the biggest inhibitors to our well-being and our self-acceptance, if we attach too much to those stories and actually allow them to shape the way that we're living our life. And I think one of the best opportunities for allowing more space for happiness and contentment is bringing awareness to the stories that we're telling ourselves, and learning to relate to them in a more favorable way.
And I love. I'm going to see the recording and take all the. I'm just sorry I didn't bring a pen to take all the notes. But I always say that it's, it depends on me. It doesn't depend on the kids. It depends on my reaction to them and how calm I am, or if I had like a difficult day or not, if I slept last night good or not. It's just like sometimes, sometimes I feel like the Mother Teresa, wake up in the morning, or like, you've seen Sound of Music. So you're like, oh, good morning, kids, and then there was like this meme, like with you others say like good morning, and you're singing to them, and then you're like screaming, and like, just shut up. Like there was like this judge, stay straight, go, stop it, do that. So it's just in 1 second, because at the end of the day you have the theory, but like how you actually behave in those moments, in the live moments, this is what matters, and the stories that you're telling yourself, and but it's all in my power. I'm working on that. Okay. Last question, I think. No, actually, I have like a few more questions. But going back to the coaching thing, and I just wanted to ask you something. Are there like people for sure there are people. What do you think about when the coaching approach is not an intervention that, it's the recommended thing for some people? People, like when men with depression. And so my question is, what other alternatives you recommend? And like how do you know how to make the difference? I also have like a very long, I won't get into details, but I have a story during my training also with a mom, and it was like, she needed like a psychiatrist, and I realized very in an early stage. But after my first call with her, everything seemed okay. And then we started, like 1 session, 2 sessions. I was like, whoa, I'm not the right person to help her. So my question is, which other approaches, which other interventions, and how do you know to make the difference when other people need more than coaching?
It's a really important question. Coaching is a supportive modality that I think can benefit everybody, but not at every stage of someone's life. And it's not the cure for a huge number of situations or experiences that someone might be having. And, I often say, during discovery calls, if I sense that what somebody really needs is a therapeutic support or medical support, that now might not be the right time, or now isn't the right time actually, for them to work with a coach.
So how do you know how to identify it?
It's intuitive. Firstly, I'm qualified as a coach, I'm not qualified as a therapist, and there is some overlap, but there's also parts of there is some, start again. I'm a coach, not a therapist. And whilst there is some overlap, there is support mechanisms that come with therapeutic training that are absolutely essential to be able to help someone navigate really deep and sometimes traumatic grief or sadness or experiences of any sort. And whilst the coaching that I do definitely takes us to deep, deep places, it's sometimes what somebody needs is actually a year or two of therapy to help them process and to help deal with what's happened in the past before they can really focus on
the future.
On exactly that, on the future. And I often say the difference is, in therapy, if everyone's on the path of their life, therapy, you're looking back down the path to say like, hey, this thing that happened to you when you were 8 is why you show up in this way in these situations, or why you feel this way. And then mentoring is way up at the head of the path, and you're working with a mentor because they've walked the path that you wish to walk. And they've had plenty of successes along the way, but they've likely had plenty of failures as well. And you can benefit from that insight and that information. Coaching, you're really arm in arm with the person. And you are dealing with the present moment and how they're showing up in that present moment. Yes, with some contextual information from the past, but really more about, okay, where are you and where do you want to get to? And that has a different set of kind of support mechanics and mechanisms to be able to help someone navigate the next phase of their life. And often, if someone's dealing with a deep trauma or even a small trauma, but a small trauma to someone, but a big trauma to them, they may actually need to spend a considerable portion of time looking back and understanding how that affected them at the time or how that still affects them today, and actually do that healing before they're ready to say, okay, what's next?
I completely agree with you. And it happened to me that I told my coach, actually, I said, I cannot move forward in life because I have like unfinished business. So I have to go back. I'm still with the coach. I haven't seen like a psychologist like for a long time, but I recognize there are like repetitive thoughts that I have, and sometimes you cannot move forward if you just don't heal from those experiences. So I know what you're saying. Last but definitely not at least, the last question about the electronic music and your passion for music. Tell me about your initiative.
So electronic music is a huge passion of mine. At the age of 19, I realized that I wasn't as good a DJ as my friends were, but I loved the way that music made me feel. I loved the experience of being part of the electronic music community in Sydney. And growing up as an only child, it was really unique for me to fully feel like I belong somewhere. And so it was a very nourishing experience for me to be part of this community, and I wanted to contribute to it in a meaningful way. And I originally thought it would be DJing, but as I said, I wasn't as good as my friends.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, wishful thinking. And I realized that I loved writing and I loved music. And so I thought, well, I wonder what it would be like to actually just write about the music that I loved. And I had a friend who was a web developer, and he was also passionate about electronic music, and he was part of the same scene that I was. And he also had a desire to help share music that he was passionate about. And so we created a platform that was designed to just talk about music that we loved and to help people find the best parties in Sydney.
So the resident advisor, this is how it like...
That's how it began.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
And I put in $400 and he put in $400, and we've never taken any investment since. And we built it over the last 23 years, very much with that same ethos of just still wanting it to be a place to talk about music that we're excited about. Obviously the team is much bigger now. There's a much broader range of tastes that feed into that, and to help people find the best events around the world. And so it's a music discovery and event discovery platform that started as a hobby and grew to become something much more, but it's something that I'm hugely proud of. I love the fact that it's making a meaningful contribution to the culture that I'm still hugely passionate about, showcasing incredible artists and also continuing to hero music journalism in a way which is really, really difficult nowadays because of the economics of the internet. And I'm really proud of how we've maintained this passion for good quality journalism on the culture of dance music.
Beautiful. Last question. Were you a problematic teenager?
Yes.
I knew it. So the music was your escape to the good boy part.
Yeah, it was my escapism, full stop, I think. Sport and music, like that's where I felt like I belonged, and that's where I spent the majority of my time as a kid. to the expense of my school grades and to the disappointment of my parents.
I think we've all been there. Yeah. To the not, the high expectation of the parents. Thank you so much.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you.